Hello and welcome to this session on leveraging data to create personalized experiences. The simplest example of personalization that I've come across is at the local pawn shops across every street. Every time I visit these shops, the owner of the shop addresses me by my name. I do not have to tell him about the type of pan I want to purchase. And plus, he'll always share a gossip about the local and global politics to make a conversation happen and to make my experience even more relaxing. Remember, he has no tools, no technology, and yet he's able to deliver a very, very pleasant experience and makes me visit him again and again and again. It is the same level of personalization that today customers seek from their brands. They want the brands to know them personally, their choices, preferences, and spoil them with their solutions and offerings. Researchers have clearly pointed that personalization is not just a buzzword in the industry, but a key metric in a customer's purchase decision. So, if a customer is not receiving tailor-made communication from the brands, it is quite unlikely that the relationship will continue for a long time, especially in this day and age. As per reports, organizations that work towards personalization are able to reduce the acquisition cost by 50%, increase revenues by 15%, and increase marketing efficiency by 30%. Hence, brands today are investing into multiple tools and technologies to analyze tons of customer data and understand the customer journey, preferences, pain points, past purchase behavior, and other aspects to create tailor-made solutions for them. So, without wasting your time, I would now like to invite my panelists for the day to discuss how they are leveraging data to create personalized experiences for their consumers and ensuring that their customers' personal data is safe and secure with them. I now invite my first panelist for the day, Mr. Nilay Chandra, Chief Marketing Officer, Ather Energy. Welcome, Nilay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
My next panelist for the day is Mr. Ankit Kirwal, Head of Marketing, Upgrade. Welcome, Ankit.
Thank you, Devesh. Hello, everybody.
Thank you. My next panelist for the day is Mr. Prashant Agarwal, Chief Marketing Officer, Health Supplements, Dabur. Welcome, Prashant.
Thank you, Devesh. Hello, everyone.
Hello. My next panelist for the day is Ms. Priyanka Kheruka, Chief Digital Marketing Officer, Borosil. Welcome, Priyanka.
Glad to be here. Hello, everyone.
Hi. Yeah. My next panelist for the day is Mr. Abraham Alapat, President and Group Head, Marketing, Thomas Cook. Welcome, Abraham.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. My next panelist for the day is Mr. Kapil Lad, Chief Marketing Officer, Eltos. Welcome, Kapil.
Hey, hi, everyone. Good to be here.
My next guest for the day is Mr. Shaumitra Dhankar, Solution Consulting, Adobe. Welcome, Shaumitra.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here to learn and exchange ideas.
And my final guest for the day is Mr. Kumar Vikram, Senior Director Strategy, Vertical. Welcome, Kumar.
Thanks, Devesh. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. My first question for the day is a rapid fire question for all of you. How would you describe personalized experiences in one line? Nilay, I'll begin with you first.
Okay, I call it built for me, but not including my privacy.
Okay. Ankit, how would you say that?
Tell or give people what specifically matters to them.
Okay. Prashant?
Making your consumer feel that the brand cares for you, but at the same time, respects you as an individual.
Okay. Priyanka?
Knowing what my customer wants before he knows he wants it and making sure he gets it.
Okay. Abraham?
Making customers feel special even when you're marketing at scale.
Great. Kapil?
Giving customers the power of convenience at the same time respecting privacy by design.
Shaumitra?
Delightful and surprising. And put it into
And Vikram, finally?
My answer would be that it's a proof of respect of the data exchange that you're having with the customer.
Great. So now opening the floor for everyone. Personalized experiences have become quite a buzzword in the industry, and every brand is working towards creating those experiences. So in respect to your categories, how are you creating that? Let's start with Nilay first. In the EV side, how are you creating those personalized experiences for your customers?
So it's very interesting. I think it's not that personalization is a completely new thing in the offline world of automobiles. Just like your pawn shop person, I think when you went into the auto shop, the person did interact with you, and after you had that interaction, you almost bought the vehicle because the person interacted with you, knew what your requirements are, etc. So I think, like to start with, this is one of the industries where personalization always had a value. It's a high involvement purchase. Now, as we came in, one of the things that we realized is that we're entering an omnichannel world. So how do you extend this interplay between online and offline and keep the personalization intact over there? I think that was one of the big challenges that we feel we've overcome quite well, which means how do we integrate all the data in a manner that you have a single view of the consumer? And so no matter which touch point you're interacting with, which person is interacting with the consumer, you still have a consistency in behaving or in relating with that consumer. I think that is where I would start with as the first step that we've taken. I'll allow everybody to comment and then I'll again come back to points.
No, absolutely. Abraham, I mean, how does it work in the case of, travel and tourism industry?
So if you look at us, actually, we are a service that's an aggregation of other people's services.
Mm-hmm.
So historically, as an old package store company, which is how Thomas Cook started, we were actually about standardizing products and then trying to sort of make customers sort of enjoy it, though it was a standardized product. What we're doing increasingly, and this again, in a way, both the market and us have changed, is really about adapting for individual travelers, because a lot of travel is now not about sightseeing and places as much as about experiences. So really it's about figuring out what the customer wants to experience on their holiday and then trying to sort of build a bucket of experiences that best suits it. And this is particularly challenging when it's a larger group and not necessarily a common interest group, so to speak. So we try to sort of figure out the 4 or 5 must-do experiences that the group wants. And then, and this is where technology comes in, we are now happily able to integrate these services and look at availability and sort of real-time stitch together a aggregation of these experiences, which then becomes an aggregation of services, which is then marketed individually to the group or individual. So I think we've come a long way, and I think technology has really helped us be able to deliver at scale to the kind of customization that people want.
Interesting. Kapil, in your case, it's more of the B2B side. Okay. So how does it work in your case?
So let me put it this way. If you look at the B2B and especially B2B IT organization spectrum, not everyone has yet made their mark when it comes to personalization. People are now realizing the importance of personalization, hyper personalization, and now with the pandemic more so. They are adopting technologies that personalize email blasts, landing pages, microsites, website. Now, this is very interesting. The data point I want to mention, I was just reading through, and there was a Gartner report which says that 50% of large organization by 22, this was a 2022 report, that 50% of the large organization have failed to unify engagement channels. And only 9% of marketeers are leveraging true potential of hyper personalization. Mm-hmm. So if you really look at the spectrum, it's really a scope where people need to improve towards, right? And of course, we are not different to that. We are making ongoing efforts where our efforts with personalized email campaigns, nurturing campaigns, trigger-based emails are working well. But what we have come to realize is that there is more that you can do with the latest advanced technologies, and we are putting the right steps in the right direction at this point of time, because what we have realized that things like hyper personalization for your customer, for your clients is going to be the key, and it's going to be the future, whether they visit your website, your country sites, your landing pages, your mobile application, or your social media channels. So B2B is, I would say, is at the very step to realize this, and it is realizing this, that personalization is going to be a key element, a core element, when it comes to retention of clients and keeping the clients engaged to a large extent with you.
Interesting. Priyanka, yours is a very, very interesting category. That's more to do with glass and glass utensils. And so it's a very wider spectrum. And people have very, especially when I say that, the decision makers in home, they have a very, unique requirement when it comes to buying these products. So how do you, create personalized personalized experiences for them? How does it work in your category? I'm more curious.
So actually, like everyone's been mentioning, we've always had personalization. So our strong distributor and retailer network, our retailers knew our products really well as we knew them, and he knew his customer really well. So that was your ultimate personalization. He knew when Mrs. Lalita walked in exactly what her needs are, how many people there are in her home, what she'd like. So there was actually a real strong barrier to entry in our category because of the strong retailer network we had. So the whole advent of e-commerce presented both a challenge and an opportunity. Challenge, why? Because suddenly the barrier to entry was lowered. The user, when he was searching, it was how the brand personalize them. Before that, we didn't have to do any work really. Our retailer did it for us.
Yeah,
so we had to create a whole other ecosystem within our organization to suddenly pivot to being much more customer centric and trying to understand who our customer is, what do they want, and how do we show them what they want. And alongside this, one of the challenges and opportunities we faced, we moved from being just a glassware brand to being an entire kitchen and sort of food and drink related brands. So from tableware to kitchen appliances, everything. So how do you then figure which customers coming to you, why they're coming to you, what is it that they want to see? So we've actually used that. We've been building this team in the last year or two. Through the pandemic, actually, we've grown fairly substantially in the online space. So what we're starting with digital communications, and our marketing strategy, we're making it much more personalized. So our social media ads, they're showing automated product affinity ads based on what the user has searched on Amazon, what the user, what his preferences on Facebook are, the groups he's a part of. Email media, upselling and cross-selling, site personalization based on user history. We're trying to use all these tools to provide a much more personalized experience to our customer. And we have a long way to go, but I think we've begun the journey.
No, that's absolutely. I mean, especially in your category where the retailer knew everything about, all the customers, pivoting it from the retailer network to, taking it completely digital. It's, I'm sure it's a very, very interesting task and a very interesting journey. So coming to you, Prashant, that's another, very unique category where everyone has, very different health needs. Okay. I may have a different health need from what Ankit might have, and Ankit might have very different one from health. So how do you create those personalized experiences, for your customers?
So, Devesh, two things, just like any other category earlier, for FMCG also, the best use case of personalization used to be at our, beloved mom and pop store wala. Right, because he always knew that which brand a particular consumer is going to ask for, what's the kind of shopping basket he buys every month, right? What brands used to do at that, some 10 years back or 15 years back was just put one communication on TV and make sure that the brand is available at the retail store. Now things have changed a lot since then. And as you rightly said, not only in overall FMCG, but especially in healthcare needs, when different consumers have different healthcare needs. What we are doing in Dabur, and especially some of the brands that we are working on, is not only coming up with different products, right, to create specialized products for people who have specialized healthcare needs, but also creating communication which is based on their interest cohorts. So the cohort-based communication is helping us reaching out to our right audience. For example, I'm just giving an example for a health brand like health supplement brand like Dabur Honey. Now, Dabur Honey for different consumers mean different things. Right? For someone, it is a means to manage weight gain. For somebody, it is a means to cure cough and cold. and for someone it is a source of nutrition for the kids, right? Now, depending on the kinds of interest the user has shown in the brand earlier, in the category, and the kind of product interactions the person has had over his or her journey on the internet, we create those cohorts and then reach out to them with the relevant communication.
Okay.
And that relevant communication is not only related to the product delivery, but also the kind of health issues she or he is facing, and the kind of claims the brand can talk to them. Because Dabur Honey has been studied worldwide on different healthcare benefits. Now, you in a one piece of communication, you cannot put all those health benefits, right? So, and those health benefits mean different things to different consumers. So that's the kind of personalization we are doing, and that's helping us staying close to our consumers and also winning over the competition as well.
Interesting. Ankit, yours is it's a very education driven category where people like aspirants are looking at upskilling themselves with new information, new courses, and what's how to move up the ladder in their professional career and their education. So how do you create those personalized experiences for your customers?
Sure, Devesh. So our category is a pretty complex one. Given that the decision making in terms of what course to take is super complex, the engagement, over during the course is pretty much anywhere between 1 to 3 years, right? So I'll break this into two bits: A, acquisition, and B, the entire learning experience over the course of 1 to 3 years. When it comes to acquisition, Upgra has to offer about 70 to 80 courses from probably 20 different universities, right? When somebody calls or drops their phone number to us, they are not 100% sure whether they want to do an MBA or a data science course or a digital marketing. Some people have already browsed and really understand what they want and they specifically mention it. But 9 out of 10 times they don't know. Okay. So we intervene in two ways. A, there's of course a one-on-one personalized counseling where somebody understands what part of their career journey they are in, what are their aspirations, etc., and then they recommend something to them. That is a very manual intervention. Now, as we speak, we're using technology here to really make it very easy, not just in terms of conversations, but even in terms of marketing it at scale at a personal level, where on the basis of where they are, number of years of experience, where they want to get, etc., an ML algo can throw a recommender. These are the 1 or 2 programs that we recommend to you on the basis of past learners, and if they achieve tangible results given their background and where they want to be in terms of, when I say tangible results, whether they got a job switch, pay hike, a promotion, etc., and we record all of that and we run ML models on that. So that's on the acquisition side. On the learning experience side, what specialization in MBA should somebody take, right? After probably 1 or 2 modules, we know on the basis of the course they get on quizzes, etc. So we're able to recommend them, and that happens purely automatically on the basis of data in the backend. Where do they stand in terms of their peers in their cohort? Right. Typically in B schools, we know it at the end of every semester. Here they know it on a real-time basis, and they know what areas they're weak at, what are their strengths on a real-time basis. The next stage of this would be to proactively add modules in their whole learning curriculum on the basis of the strengths and weaknesses. Or somebody should proactively reach out to them that, hey, these are the strengths, let's schedule a one-on-one conversation to chart out a personalized career or a learning experience for you over the next 6 months. So that's how we try to personalize both acquisition as well as outcome-driven learning experience for our learners.
Interesting. Soumitra, it's very apparent that a lot of brands are now investing towards creating these personalized experiences, and you work with brands across a lot of sectors. So are there any apprehensions from brands today in investing towards creating these experiences in in going forward and strengthening their capabilities to create those experiences and connect with the customers? How does it work?
Yes, thanks. You rightly said, I have the fortune of working with a cross section of industry. I haven't seen apprehensions about personalizing, but there are definitely considerations that industries take up in personalizing, right? As Simon Sinek said, start with a why. So I think this why drives the industry to personalize, and there are two type of thought processes, right? Are we personalizing to acquire, or are we personalizing to convert, right? And acquisition is an anonymous customer coming to your website, and you personalizing the experience so that he feels motivated to subscribe to your newsletter, so you have his email address or left a phone number so that you can call him, right?
Right.
So it is that's one type of industry, which could be manufacturing, which could be banking, right? Who don't sell tangible products on their website.
Mm.
And then there are others who want to convert, who actually sell products on their website. So I can personalize so that people can go, add to cart, pay, and there's revenue coming in. So I think these are the two considerations why I am personalizing. And then the whole strategy of personalization, which again gets divided into either an inbound personalization, which means somebody is coming to my website or somebody is downloading my app. Then there are strategies around that. Or there are outbound personalizations, right? I am sending an email, or I am sending an SMS, or I am sending a push notification. One thing that I have observed, and I think Ankit touched upon it, personalization started with recommendation, right? That you are interested in this, so this may also work with you, right? You like this product, so you can also buy this product. But today, it is not only left to personalization. It is not only left to recommendation. Every step of customer journey has been personalized, and not just B2C companies, right? We have a couple from B2B. 6-8 months of buying cycle, yet can I progressively nudge the customer to be more informed about my product? Right? That's the whole idea. So there are personalization nuances around that as well. But largely, it is the KPI around acquisition versus conversion and inbound versus outbound that I have seen across industries driving personalization strategies.
Vikram, coming to you, taking on from what Soumitra has mentioned, when we are going about it, what are the kind of tools and technologies that brands need to invest towards to create this personalization, be it inbound, be it outbound?
Sure, thanks. So I guess taking up from what a lot of the panelists have said, I guess the need for technology in enabling these personalized experiences across mass is kind of default now. Everyone kind of understands that. But at the same time, technology is just an enabler. If your strategy is in place, like what Soumitra was talking about, you understand what technology is required. And there are different technology pieces which can help across different stages of the journey. So depending on the inbound versus outbound stages, or the acquisition versus the conversion journey, you could identify the specific technology options that would be able to fulfill what you are trying to achieve at that specific stage. So it starts with that objective of which stage are you trying to touch, who are you trying to customize it for or personalize it for, where is your content coming in from. And once you have these different elements in place, the technology solution becomes pretty much default in terms of what would answer your requirement. There are obviously, as I mentioned earlier, there's a personalization is essentially seen, at least from a customer's perspective, as a proof that you are actually respecting the data exchange, which means it needs to go across the first party, second party, third party kind of interaction. And that's where, especially with the third party cookie becoming a bit of a question mark coming from 2023 onwards across all browsers, it does become a question of having something like a CDP, or a customer data platform, which would essentially combine what you're doing across different platforms and not just in your own space. But once you have a CDP, you are able to kind of integrate the experiences across platforms, but then you get into your website personalization, your content personalization, email personalization, and all the other channels that you're using. So there's a whole strategy of technology which will be required, but it kind of is the enabling element which we need to think about, and that is driven by the strategy of what step, what audience, where is it what channel and what content that needs to be served. Once you have those in place, the technology is available to enable that.
Great. You mentioned a very interesting point. It's like, unifying experiences, creating unifying experiences across all platforms, to create a seamless experience. Ankit, I want to bring you in on this point. I mean, like, how does, it differentiates a brand in the market, when you are able to deliver those, unifying experiences across, all channels for the consumers?
So Devish, I've always believed that the customer is the same whether online or offline. So the omnichannel is a new buzzword, right? But customer exists everywhere, and there are multiple touch points to reach. And it's not a new concept, right? Standardized brand guidelines or tone manner. If I just talk on the brand side, and that needs to be coherent, right? Across various marketing communication, whether it comes the value proposition, positioning, everything needs to be consistent. Even if when you tie up with, say, do content, what kind of content you do, what kind of influences you tie up with, all of that need to have a unified, same language, manner, look and feel, etc. In terms of experiences, right, our actual interaction with your product. Thankfully, we don't have multiple ways to deliver our product. As much as we would want to have a mix of both online and offline learning, COVID made it impossible for us to do that. However, we do have live, interactions with either industry mentors or actual classroom learning, where professors come and take live classes. That experience would only get enhanced if that happens physically, if we give an option for both online and offline, whoever chooses whatever medium they want to. It'll only improve if people have choice of medium or channel of interaction with you, where they get consistent outcomes. So that's broadly what I have to say about that.
Interesting. Priyanka, in your case, how does these consistent outcomes, across all channels work? And how are customers engaging across these channels with you? I mean, like, it's a unique category. So how does it work in your case?
In our case, actually, we have very different customers across both. Online, a lot of the customers who are coming don't actually know your brand. I mean, there's so many, I cannot count how many 20 and 30-year-olds, when I tell them I work with Borosil, say, oh, yeah, my mother used to use it every time I fell down. And I have to say, no, that's Borolene. But these are the customers who are buying online. And with them, I always say Amazon has in some ways made customers brand agnostic, because if I go online and I see two products at a similar price point, one is a brand I've heard of, but the other one has great reviews, I am equally likely to go for one with the great reviews. So, whereas when someone's walking into a store, they're very often walking in knowing, with a brand preference. Very often that's not the case online. So for us, we have to, there's multiple things that we look at. If a customer is coming looking for Borosil, what is the experience we offer them? How do we convert that customer? How do we bring back that customer, show them more and more of what we have? Whereas someone who doesn't know Borosil, what is the information we show them? How do we justify our price premium to them? How do we get them quickly acquainted with the brand without sort of scaring them off, because customers online have very short attention spans. So we don't really have an integrated omni-channel experience from that perspective. I think what we do is very different, both offline and online.
Okay. Nilay, in your category, okay, how does this concept of omni-channel, creating those personalized omni-channel experiences work? Because it's a when a customer has to spend with you, the ticket size is a little higher. So how does that work?
Actually, it works very well, right? Because you've got, we say that the customer is in market from like 3 years period. So we are no longer in the world where the customer comes into the market today and then makes a purchase tomorrow. Like it spans across years, right? Which means that these are all breadcrumbs of the consumer's experience with us in different touch points, some owned by us, some not owned by us. At least the ones which are owned by us, we have the ability to know that, hey, this customer had this experience, took a test ride at a particular location, attended one of our events, called us for 2-3 inquiries, okay, visited our experience center once, twice, thrice, okay. Now we start forming a picture of this consumer, right? And this picture goes into purchase and into the lifetime, which is another 3 years, right? So we have like a whole 6-year time to actually impact use the knowledge to make a difference to the consumer. Like someone said, like omni-channel is just as much as two different touch points. It doesn't mean differently for the fact that the consumer is in an online touch point versus an offline touch point versus a call or WhatsApp. We hardly know whether to call it online or offline today because the nature of engagements are very likened to an offline experience, but the touch point is digital. What helps is that as you keep collecting this, if there is an ability to tag, categorize consumers in a manner that then you can have content which is based on those tags and those contents get surfaced to the consumer. It's a very technology way of doing what you would do. And again, I'll go back to your panwala, right? Your panwala will have a gamut of pan options that they have, right? Yeah. And they would know that which of that story or which of that pan is relevant for this consumer. So you have a bouquet of content, you have different touch points in which this consumer is engaging, and at different touch points, depending upon the journey of the consumer's need states are very different, right? So to have a very clear idea to say that at a particular touch point, a particular cohort, what need state are you fulfilling, and hence what is core to your consumer experience at that point of time. And from that link back to saying what is the content that this consumer needs to get exposed to, that engine, that machinery becomes very important. Once you get that engine, for us, a lot of dissemination and the engaged dissemination happens through people. And in some cases, in some companies, it might happen through emails, it might happen through WhatsApp messages, right? But the core point is that have you got that engine working, and are you constantly improving on that engine? Are you making sure that it's made contemporary? And contemporary because your content is changing, your perception as a brand is changing, also because the consumers who are coming into the funnel are different, right? And that's where I would say the core of this personalization works. And the lovely thing is that the fact that we can leverage personalization into ownership, into services, into them buying a new product, I think that's what makes this whole thing very magical, because you can get that consumer through the life cycle and give them what is relevant to them. There's huge appreciation for that. I think it starts trickling into your brand love beyond what it gives you on your short-term sales. So it's very interesting.
Interesting. Prashant, when Nilay just talked about creating the brand love with the personalization, okay, and as marketers, brand love is a very large concept, and it takes a lot of time. And Nilay kindly, explain that, the kind of time frame they have. So personalization as a concept has a beauty. You try, you test, you scale, you may succeed or you may not succeed, but you'll have to wait. So when it comes to, setting the KPIs or setting the metrics for the effectiveness of the personalization, how do you go about it?
So again, as Nilay said, brand love. So the personalization goes a long way in building the brand love. Now, brand love is a very broad term, and when you come to talk about KPIs for personalization, both brand love and the KPIs of personalization work at 3 levels, right? Starting from the consideration level, moving to transaction, and third is the long-term value for the brand. Right? And the KPIs are then set for each level, starting from consideration and awareness. And we have KPIs which tells us that a personalized piece of content, how is it delivering on the KPIs related to consideration and awareness. And we have seen drastic improvements whenever there is a personalized content, and personalized content along with, of course, very sharp targeting. So sharp targeting and personalized content goes hand in hand for FMCG. So that's at one level. Second level comes after this which comes is the transaction. Now transaction is clearly driven driven and also measured through CTRs and the acquisition cost. So these are the two major KPIs at the transaction level. Now, third is the generating long-term value for the consumer and also for the brand. That is measured through the stickiness of the consumer and also whether we are able to upgrade and upsell through the personalized content and personalized experience at that level. So these are the three buckets under which you can put the KPIs, and we've seen across different brand groups that personalized content has delivered much higher results on these KPIs. Clearly.
Okay. Abraham, do you concur with the three buckets that Prashant just mentioned?
Actually, while more than respond to that, I just want to pick up on the conversation that was happening earlier and elements that each of you spoke of. From our sort of line or industry, I think one of the things that immediately struck a chord was your description of the panwala. Because if you look at going into a kirana store or a panwala, you'll see very different experiences, and the panwala or kirana wala is very good at identifying what kind of customer you are. Yeah. You have the kind of person who goes to a kirana store and the owner knows that this is the kind of person who knows exactly what he or she wants, doesn't want anyone to talk to him or her, will pick that thing up, go to the counter, doesn't want to actually have a conversation, close the transaction. But that customer is equally loyal, right? Because he's a creature of convenience. On the other hand, you've got this customer who will show up and will gossip as much as he will buy, right? Or she will buy. So they want to talk, and it's about the relationship as much as the transaction. So in a way, our business is a lot like that, because our core competence really comes from expertise and the ability to customize aggregated services, which otherwise are available to each of us to transact individually. So we've tried to sort of keep that at the core of what we try to do, and try to increase the number of conversations we can have. And by conversation, I'm using a very large definition of the term. The conversation may be minimal spoken word. You could have a straight through web customer who knows exactly what he or she wants to find and sort of get out with maybe minimal assistance. On the other hand, you've got a kind of customer who likes to walk into a branch, talk to somebody they've dealt with, ask 100 questions, insist on a personal flyer or brochure, get a quote and so on. So the idea really is to try to create conversations, whether it's a chatbot online or whether it's a physical conversation or with a call center, and at all points try to improve the length and quality of that conversation. Because our understanding is that the more intense or close the conversation gets, the more likely the conversion is and the better experience that the customer will finally have. Because in that, we are able to understand the customer better and be able to create that aggregation of services in a way that's in line with the expectation, and that relationship is formed. I think to the brand love concept, this is really what I think all service brands should aspire to do, which is to have more conversations where the user is giving you more information voluntarily. So in some cases, it takes care of that third-party cookie problem as well, because at each point, the customer is also evolving. One of the mistakes I think a lot of marketers make is that they assume the empirical evidence of past shopping, especially for something like holidays or retail travel, is really what's going to drive the next purchase. And I'll give you a classic example of a transaction that happened this morning. There's a family that we took on holiday last year, just at the end of the second wave. And the family said, we don't want to go anywhere near water because none of us can swim. Okay. So obviously we couldn't recommend places like Andaman and stuff like that. What has happened this time is the seller actually said, sir, I know none of you like water, so why don't you go to the hills? And he said, no, my daughter's just taken swimming classes. All of us took the classes along with her. We want to go to a place where there's. So they're all going to Andaman. So I'm just giving you it's a sort of dramatic example, but I think it makes the point that we must not make the mistake of assuming that customers are not evolving and sort of aspiring to more or different. And I think the key is to have those conversations, and the more conversations you can have. And from a technology point of view, what we're doing is actually using AI to listen to these conversations, whether via a chatbot or with a call center call to find out keywords that are being picked up and the frequency and the length of the call, etc., so that we're able to rate the quality of conversation. And there's clear evidence to suggest that calls that are longer than 4 minutes almost always convert per call. And scores of 4 and 4.5 and above on a scale of 4 to 5, actually, the conversion and repetition is much higher. So I think that's really what we are trying to do, which is really trying to keep the human interaction at the core, but using technology to improve information available to the seller, whether a bot at the back end or a human at the front end, and be able to have a more meaningful conversation, understand the real-time sort of adapted customer, and then be able to create a solution accordingly.
Interesting. And I really love that the metric that you shared about 4 minutes and above. Going above 4 minutes, it's like almost a transaction close or like a repeat purchase happening. Coming to you, Kapil, on this, I'm sure that the metrics in your case would be completely different, because while others were talking about a B2C prospect, yours is more of a B2B prospect. So how does it work in your case? What are the metrics that you set for personalization effectiveness?
No, I think one of the common points is one of the panelists mentioned right now, that it all depends on which stage things are happening, because it depends if you are at the beginner's stage or at a very immature stage, at the beginning stage. The matrix like the engagement matrix, the web traffic, the page views, the stickiness of the content, how much a person is spending time on the content, that becomes important because you are just beginning your journey. Right? When you proceed or you are a bit of a mature player in personalization concepts, then what happens is then you talk about the traffic coming to leads, the MQLs to SQLs. That becomes more important, because remember, in a B2B is always a long journey. 6 to 9 months to 12 months could be a purchase cycle, and for us, and it stands for all the B2B companies, that a lot of companies collect a lot of data from people, but what they miss out is put the data into work through a tool like a CDP or something, because what is essential is understanding the customer lifetime value and then defining a strategy around it, because that is what is going to be importance or of important matter, because that is how you start calculating things, be it the ROI on your campaign or your cost per lead. But again, to answer your question, I think it really depends. I mean, these are all the metrics that you define, but it really depends which is the stage where you are. Again, it also again depends from the customer to customer, because if it's let's say a farming account, then what happens is it becomes important how much the person is sticking with you, which are the different touch points he's engaging with you. But if it's an account where you're hunting, then probably how much time he's spending on your site. So it all matters that way, I guess. Yeah.
On that point, Shomit and Vikram, I want to come to you. So everyone has mentioned the importance of data, and how data, from multi-channels is playing a key role into the creation of those personalized experiences and creating that overall brand love. But another aspect that consumers are extremely concerned about is the safety of that data. Okay, so today I'm like do people have any apprehensions? And you work with a lot of brands. Okay, so what are brands actually doing in ensuring that that this data is safe? And are consumers having any apprehensions as there is more and more aware about brand safety, and they hear a lot of things out there in the market, in the news especially? So how are brands acting about this?
Thanks, great question, Devesh. I'll probably answer it in two parts. One is the whole use of data in personalization, and the second aspect of the concerns that brands may have or customers may have about the safety of that data. I think Abraham touched a great point that past purchase data is not a great indication of personalization in the moment. Right? So I think as much as past purchase data is important and it tells us about how customers has behaved, what really helps in personalization is real-time data, right? And by real-time data, I mean what the customer is thinking in that moment, right? And of course, we can't peep into their head, but we can make a reference out of how they are behaving on your digital property, right? Are they spending 30 seconds on a page and just bouncing off? Or are they there for 3 minutes watching the video? Have they completed the video or have they left it halfway? Have they downloaded the brochure or not? Right? In case of automotives, are they using the 3D viewer to zoom, pinch, change colors? Right? All of this real-time data helps me understand the intent and helps me understand how do I personalize. Right? The ability to use that real-time data is where the crux lies. Right? Data is available. How do I make it actionable at that moment of truth to personalize? Right? And that's where systems starts differentiating. The second aspect of personalization I want to touch upon is as much as data is available, we are able to create a segment, we are able to personalize, right? Do I have systems flexible enough who will dynamically change the content, right? Because in its minimalistic level, personalization is segment A customers show content A, segment B customers show content B. But tomorrow, if I have 1,000 segments, I obviously can't create 1,000 pieces of content, right? That becomes unscalable. So can there be one content template and the which gets populated dynamically based on what the customer is doing in real time, right? And with all this complexity, the fun part of personalization is no one knows whether it will work or not, right?
Absolutely.
We have a hypothesis and we are going to test it out. So what really goes hand in hand with personalization is the ability to test, right? I have this content, I have this brand color, I think this message is going to work. Let me put it out, right? How do I test it? I do A/B test, I do multivariate test, I measure engagement, and then I quickly gonna weed out what is not working, right? Celebrity in a formal suit with product in left hand, or celebrity in traditional Indian attire with product in right hand. No one can tell you what is going to appeal to the consumer, right? So the idea is to test it out, and hypothesis will vary from industry to industry. But testing, the ability to test, the ability to use real-time data, and the ability to dynamically change the content is where I think the personalization thing is going. Very interestingly comes the aspect of privacy, right?
Yes.
All the data that doing personalization has to be consent first. So gone are the days that you can use data from third-party sources and then use them to personalize experiences. Even on your own website or on your own app, it has to be a consent-only personalization, right? In their ability to personalize, I think the consent-only message or concept most of the organizations have got, and they are respectful, right? I'm talking across brands. But I think where they are struggling is tomorrow I am a customer of brand X, right? And 5 years down the line, one fine day I send an email to security@brandxyz.com saying, please delete all my data, right? You have my data, please delete this data and confirm back saying you have deleted my data. It could be my behavioral data, it could be my phone number, email address. Now this data is floating around so much of islands of information in an organization. There is no one structured system or one structured workflow that makes you do it confidently and reply back in half an hour saying, yes, it's done. Right? Different organizations are at different level of maturity. Can it be done? Yes. I mean, but today what I'm saying is it's a lot of scampering around or a lot of running around to make it happen, right? And that is where I think the world is moving with GDPR and the Indian privacy data protection law around the corner. We are not far away from the day where not only the use of data for the personalization, but its governance, management, maintenance, archival, all of will happen as per what either the regulator wants or the consumer wants, or both of them want.
Okay. Vikram, in your thoughts, I mean, are brands, swiftly moving towards this, in terms of safety and security of data?
That again, taking Shamanta's lead, I'll split the answer into two parts. The first one is what are the brands doing, and most of the brands that we see here, or most of the brands that are working in this particular space, are essentially large MNCs, and they have to follow the laws across different markets. So even if it's like an Indian headquartered MNC, they are still marketing to consumers in US, Europe, etc., etc. So they have to follow the rules of all of these markets, and therefore the assumption is pretty much that there is some amount of data privacy management that they have brought in place. Obviously, how much of it is done, how advanced they are, is varying, but there is a certain amount of top level pressure both from the government side and from the C-level boards to ensure that they respect and manage how data is being managed. So as an agency, for example, when we work across these different brands, we obviously have to participate in data audits for their platforms, their technologies, enable them to check that it is being done, follow the processes, identify where PII data is going or not going, and how can we scramble it before it gets passed across, especially from first or own data to any partner information that is being shared. So all of that is something which a lot of companies are adopting in terms of how they manage this entire journey that they have to go on to fairly quickly. Yeah. The second part of it is more around what the customer is doing, and that's where I said that personalization is more a proof of your respect for the data that is being given to you. So you could be giving data, and we have all assumed that the data that is being given to you is the right data. But if you don't show me the respect by responding back to the information I gave to you last time, the information I give you this particular interaction will not be necessarily accurate. My intent data could be scrambled. I could be using a VPN or some other information to hide my internet behavior, as well as submit wrong information in the forms that I'm submitting to you, because last time when I interacted with you, you did not show any respect to the information that I gave to you. And that's where that kind of scrambles even more the effort that a brand can do to personalize, or even to store, as you kind of come up with names of all different formats and styles that can be essentially given across. So there's that part of data respect. One is the regulatory part, which needs to be taken care of to ensure that you don't fall foul of the pretty heavy penalties that could come across your way. But the second part of it is that if you don't respect the data from a way of using it to personalize, the customer is not going to honor their engagement part by giving you any kind of accurate information.
Interesting. And this discussion reminds me of an incident that happened in Europe a couple of years ago, where a resident probably asked, from one of the matchmaking platforms that what kind of data they have around her. And I won't name the matchmaking platform right now here, but they sent her an 800-page report around, and she was surprised to see that, oh my God, I don't have that kind of analysis about myself. What the platform has the kind of analysis about them.
Yep.
It's pretty interesting. Coming back to the personalized experiences, so it's been a very, very interesting discussion with you all. So before I end the session, before I end the day, just want to closing thoughts from you all. So do you see, more and more brands, investing towards personalized experiences in the future? And will it become the key in every marketer's arsenal? I'll start with you, Abraham.
Unquestionably, Devesh, given the challenges of both the GDPR norms as well as the relevance of real-time data, I think personalization, real-time, and actionable data real-time will become not only crucial, it will become critical to marketing.
Ankit, what are your thoughts?
Devesh, I don't think it will be a matter of choice. Brands will have to do that to survive over the next probably decade or so. All the more with GDPR coming in, Apple going heavy on privacy, Google shutting down cookies, right? And every brand will have to start capturing first-party data, and I don't see any other way out.
Nile, what do you think?
I have an interesting take. I think more than the individual brands, I think third parties will come into place to simplify this with all of these laws, etc. coming in. It's very complicated for small size brands to live this life and yet do personalization. So I think the role of a third party who can take this solutioning end to end is gonna increase. Also from a consumer perspective, I see too much of personalization will also lead to a need for simplicity. So I think in some ways or the other, the simplistic world is also going to come back where there is personalization, but it's not as apparent as it is apparent today as brands probably go out to prove that they're personalizing. I think you'll see some subtlety coming down.
So absolutely, I think we have some records of how personalization, too much of personalization can also be can also be firing back to the brands. It has gone wrong also at some levels for some brands. Priyanka, what's your thought on it?
Interesting you said that, because it's like everyone's been talking about Facebook and Google and the news and stuff, and how everything you go further and further into an echo chamber because of the deep personalization that they do. So the further down one path you go, you forget that that there is anything outside that. So you're right, there has to be a balance, but I do think knowing your customer, knowing what they want, and giving them and showing them what they want is, if a brand doesn't do that, I don't think it's going to survive over the next couple of years, next 10 years.
Prashant?
So personalization is really important for building a lasting relationship with your consumer, but at the same time, you really need to keep showing the respect to them. Yeah, you really can't go deep into their privacy levels as well. So, so both from the consumer as well as the brand point of view, personalization is going to be critical going forward, and more importantly for any brand, personalization will also play an important role in building the competitive advantage.
Absolutely. Kapil?
Yeah, definitely. Personalization, and when I talk about B2B, personalization is going to be the core element, mainly, in the marketing strategy, in every marketing strategy, because, a B2B works very differently, and you need to have that personalization element built into it. Now, a lot of B2B companies are also working on hyper segmentation, which means hyper personalization is also in place, and you'll see a day where hyper personalization becomes more important. But again, there has to be a balance maintained between what you do, how do you respect the privacy laws, how do you respect, you need to make sure that personalization is impactful, but at the same time you also do not want to overwhelm someone with personalizations, right? So I think personalization is going to be core, but at the same time, being transparent, being respectful of the law at the same time is going to be the key, because brands which will respect the data of the customer are going to be the winners at the end of the day, is what I understand and I feel. Yeah.
Soumitra, it's great news for all of us.
Absolutely. As Ankit said, it is not going to be a choice. It is going to be something that we will do. But I think the brands who will differentiate it, respecting customers' privacy, respecting consent, and personalizing it to n is equal to 1, right? I think what is going forward, what is going to happen is, to each individual, I am going to personalize the experience. As Nilay said, there are some who may love personalization on every visit, and there are some who don't. Right? There are some who would respect the minimal personalization. There are some who love to be indulged and they would need something else. So drilling it down to an individual customer, with her consent first, privacy respected, data being actioned in real time, is, I think, the mantra for personalization.
Great. And Vikram, finally, your thoughts?
Sure, thanks. I guess I'll just take what everyone has said a step further, and I think what will differentiate a true winner would be someone who allows the customer to control the level of personalization they get. At the moment, personalization is something which all of us believe is what brands control and therefore what they offer. If I, as a brand, could offer the level of personalization that I, as a consumer, can have with that particular brand, enable the kind of content that is shown, I think that would essentially change the game. The reason why a Facebook, for example, faces the kind of criticism sometimes is because they use data which are questionably collected, which I may not necessarily know about. And as long as you show the data, like the 800 pages of information you talked about, if I can use that information and decide which one should be relevant, not relevant, be the information of my swimming or not swimming in the past, and decide which one to be used, I think that's where the difference will be. And as long as you allow the consumer to be in control, I think you will win. If you make decisions on behalf of the consumer, you might lose the game.
Great. Thank you, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It was really lovely interacting with you all. And, I am going back home a little more knowledgeable on personalization, and as much as the audiences that are watching it. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and how personalization works in your category. Lovely interacting with you all. Thank you very much.